Oh, yeah. Oh, crikey, yeah. I suppose I've had some. I've had a few, competed. My first year I ever competed in the pro ranks abroad was in 2001. I can't really tell you the story about going through customs because I'll probably get busted. But I'll tell you what, it was good, and I'll see what my solicitors say about that before I put it in my book. But it was quite funny actually. Yeah, so we went and competed in America and Canada. That was a really good experience. In all fairness, I love that. But I did the Ironman you're referring to. It was like the Ironman or the San Francisco because it was like 2-3 weeks apart.
I don't know. I've heard you tell the story before.
And at one of the shows, I came in that them show was the heaviest I've ever been. I mean, it's close to 15 stone at the time, but it was slightly off. Yet everybody was going how amazing my condition was, and I'm going, but this is me slightly off. And I'm thinking, what? You know what I mean? So my expectations and my standards of what I see a condition are way, way higher than the majority of people. You know, I always look to like saying like I saw when I see Dorian, it was all about that crisp, dry, granite hard look for me. We did the 2003 it was, yeah, it was I think it was a San Francisco show. And anyway, we were backstage and Aaron Baker comes up after it all finished, and I'm sat there, and he goes, "I didn't realise how Aaron Baker's. I've heard that like he's whatever. I've got to be careful what I say, but I heard he was, what I mean. But he's a lovely guy, really, really nice man. One of my heroes, from when we were reading magazines. It's like, wow, Latman he was called, like instead of Batman, he was just. And he comes up to me and goes, "It's John, isn't it?" And I went, "Yeah." He said, "Oh my God." He said, "What a fabulous physique." He said, "How do you get so hard?" And I went, "Diet cardio, He said, "You look fabulous. I just thought I'd let you know." I was like, wow. But it was quite funny because he had this quite effeminate voice, and this man's a monster. But he was so polite and so nice, and it was such a wonderful comment to hear from a guy I used to look up to as a teenager who didn't even have a clue what bodybuilding was about, and here it was years later, all them years later, getting praised by...
Kind of surreal, in a way.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You imagine you're a kid looking at these guys and going, wow, and you're going to become one of them, and they're coming up to you singing your praises. It's like, wow. Yeah. But it was funny, I must admit. Yeah, it was funny. Yeah.
So, what made you decide to retire then? Was there one event that happened, or was it just...
I think there was a number of things. Again, I got to the point where I thought, I didn't realise at the time I was entering in the show with the view to retire. I sort of spoke about it for a number of years, thinking, how long am I going to do this for? Because when you're going through your career, you think, oh, there's no way I could imagine myself ever retiring from bodybuilding. I loved it so much. Mm. But you get to a point where there's so much passion that it can just do the opposite to you, and eventually it can burn you out. And I think that's where I was finding myself. I did the last show, the British Grand Prix, in March 2011. And I remember saying, I'm getting ready for the show. And the reason why I did it was because, Simon Fan was financing the whole event, and Neil Hill was involved, and James Collier. And I wanted to support the lads. And I said to Neil, look, Neil, I'm doing the show primarily to support you guys. I said, I don't care about the money. I don't even know how much there's up for grabs. So I'm not even interested about qualifying for the Olympia. I said, I'm going to do this. And Neil said to me, he said, look, you don't have to do it for us, do it for you. I said, no, I'm going to do it to support the show because there's a lot gone into this. I said, and I want to do it. And I remember speaking to my mate at the time, Gavin, who was my training partner. And I said to Gavin, I said, listen, go and do the show. I says, but the main objective for me is to just relax, chill, and enjoy it. And I said, I'm not even going to put any pressure on myself. I know what I've got to do. I know exactly how I'm going to come in. And so I set my stall out by keeping my cardio high 2 times a day from the off, but my food very high. And I ended up, coming into that show probably the biggest and best I'd ever looked. you know, I was very happy with the outcome. I came second to James Flex Lewis. I qualified for Mr. Olympia, and I had a phone call off Alvin Small. It was a lovely conversation, and he said, John, he said, I just have to ring you up to say you looked unbelievable. I even ran from backstage to get hold of Harold Murillo and said, you've got to come backstage and see John Hodgson. You've never seen that like it. He said he looked ridiculous. And there was them little comments, and I remember when I left the venue at the night time with my mum, Gavin, and mate Mike Conley, who was the first training partner, my auntie, and as I was walking down, I just said, do you know what? I think it might be time to call it a day. Leave on a high.
Yeah, on top.
And bow out on my terms, and bow out with everybody singing my praises.
Yeah.
And so anyone who knows John Hodgson knows that I've been a fighter and a warrior throughout, from start to finish. And from the age of winning the middleweights at 12 and a half stone, I then was competing at 14 and a half stone, and at the age of 42, I didn't go backwards, I went forwards and improved. I said, why do I need to go to Olympia to prove anything? And I suppose a lot of people were disappointed. Even now people say to me, you should come back, compete, you're not finished, not done. You know, I mean, I've just been having a bit of a rebound now, just for the last 5 or 6 weeks. Just, you know, because I've had, like, as we know, we all took anabolics. I'm not going to deny that. Come on, let's get real. But since I retired, I had a total break and I've not used anything for over 2 years. So, you know, and that's what, and so, you know, I'm training for me now.
Yeah.
There's no vision for me to compete. I've got nothing to prove.
Going back to the Grand Prix, I think you looked probably your best at the Grand Prix ever, 2011 that is, and you looked, in my opinion, better than you did at the Olympia 2 years previous.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to? Because I think you looked a lot rounder in the Grand Prix than you did in the Olympia.
Yeah,
a lot fuller, a lot better.
My biggest downfall, believe it or not, was I chased conditions sometimes too much, and so I'd end up losing a little bit of muscle and come in very hard and dry, but deflated. So the objective for the Grand Prix was to keep my calories high, keep my cardio up, and let everything come together and not panic. And so I wasn't really, you know, like killing myself, and you know, I was just nice and steady with it. I actually started the British Grand Prix at a weight of 203 pounds, and this is where people shake their head and go, what? So, you know, I started my as I say, the pre-contest, 203 pounds, and my body had a break from using any gear and stuff like that. They introduced a little bit, and I mean a little bit, I was never a big user. And then I went, from there, in 2 weeks later, my body rebounded up to 212 because it volumized up. And then slowly come down. I took my body weight down to about 199, just under, with about 4 or 5 weeks to go, and I was ready. And I just ate up and walked on stage at 201, 202. And people were walking around off season at, you know, I had people like Shaw Tavernier in the gym who was walking around at 16 and a half stone, and people looking at him going, you competing against him? I went, yeah. I criticise him to you, and I went, don't worry about it. Just you watch, just you watch. So I knew my game plan, and I just was confident in the fact that it'll just come. Because I eat, look, I'm eating clean, eating plenty. And people don't realise how much food you can get away with eating. But the thing is, with myself, I never let myself go too far out. I never used to get, you know, towards the latter years, I made sure I didn't carry excessive body fat and stuff like that, and make it hard on myself.
So your off seasons were, you didn't balloon in the off
No, not at all. I'd done it in the early years. Crikey, I remember being a right chubby checker sometimes. You know, Pillbury old boy and a big fucking melon head like that. But towards the latter years, the opposite. You know, whereas in the previous years I'd been like between 15, even up to as much as 16 and a half stone, I was holding a body weight of probably off season between 14 and a half and 15 stone.
You felt that worked for you?
And I thought, well, when I say it worked for me, I mean it was just a case of, you know, as long as you're eating good food and that, and you know, I'm only 5'4", how much can I pack on my frame? 5'4", walked on stage at 14 and a half stone. It's a bloody big man, that, in condition. Yeah, so, you know, and could I have gone and competed heavier? Yeah, damn right I could have. I know what I can do. You know, I could have done that. Yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of heard your opinion on people ballooning too high in the off season. You talked briefly about gear usage and how you didn't use much.
That was a big load. No, I mean, not at all. I mean, when you hear about what a lot of people are using today, it frightens the shit out of me, and it's just ridiculous. It's simply a case of people putting the cart before the horse. Master your training, master your nutrition, and a little bit will go a long way if you decide to take that route, you know.
So what's your opinion on amateur bodybuilders who are using, for example, 1 gram plus a week? You even hear of people using 2-3 grams a week of gear.
Fucking knobheads. And I hope they're all watching. Take it on board, you're a bunch of knobheads. And I'm going to be brutally blunt on that, the way I say it. It's crazy. It's not necessary. You're asking for trouble. You know what I mean? It's just 2 and 3 grams. I mean, it's just crazy shit. You know, people just... I mean, I use, for the British Grand Prix, 650 milligrams all told in a week. And I was growing. And I was changing. And everyone saw what I looked like at the British Grand Prix. And people go, nah. And I went, well, I've not got no reason to lie.
Yeah, you can come second to Flex Lewis.
I did 500 milligrams of testosterone and 150 milligrams of trenbolone a week. And on top of that, I had about 4 IU of growth going in. I think it was either every day or every other day. I can't even remember. Half the time I kept forgetting to take that. And that is gospel, you know. And then I just changed over the Sustanon, or the 500 milligram of, I think it was Sustanon and Testex. And I just changed that to a propionate 3 times a week for the last 6 weeks. So I can honestly say on that I didn't cane the stuff at all, not at all. You can't abuse gear. You can. You've got to understand. It's a bit like saying I've got a headache. Well, all right, I'll take fucking 10 paracetamols instead of the stated 1 or 2 tablets. You know, it just doesn't make sense. And people are under this impression that all these top pros are doing this, this, and this. And it's not the case. And if you ask me, do the pros look better today than they did in the 90s? No, they don't. The golden era of bodybuilding was the 90s. They came in condition, quality muscle, but with that dry, harder look. Yeah. You know, we've now got the age of the monsters where it's distension, and there's a handful of guys that you can pick out and put amongst the guys of the 90s. But across the board, I think the standard's poor now, if I'm being honest.
I've wondered this for ages. The 90s, in my opinion too, they were better.
Without
but no one, hardly anyone at all these days, seems to even replicate that.
No.
What is the reason? Because if people knew the reason, well, obviously you know the reason, but if it was widely known, surely people would just do that because it looked better.
I think a lot of the time as well, what's crept in is this age of the guru. Learn to wipe your own ass. No one ever bloody, you know what I mean? Who's looking at me for? I'm not going to fucking answer the phone. You fucking staff. I've got staff here and they're looking at me to answer the phone. It's like, no, where were we again? I've been sidetracked then. What was that?
You're saying about the age of the guru.
Yeah, the age of the guru and that. And so people are leaning on people to prep them and all that. And I suppose the argument is, well, other sportsmen have people to help them in certain issues and that. So there is an argument for and against. But for me, I just got to understand the basics and understand what my body was about, and not to sound flippant, but bloody hell, is bodybuilding really that difficult? You train hard and you eat a quality basic diet, and if you don't understand what quality proteins, complex carbs and good vegetables are, then you're fucking in the wrong game, aren't you? It's not difficult, you know. But then saying that, some people, you know, are not as confident as others, I suppose, as well, and to counter-argue what I'm saying is, bodybuilders are very, very precarious creatures and, you know, like very fragile, especially as a dieting. So having a good eye and a sensible brain, you know, then looking after you is good. I mean, there are a handful of people that I would honestly say that are truly good. But you wouldn't have someone advising you who hasn't been there and seen it and done it. You just don't do that, you know. And there are too many people that are doing that. You know, I've heard of certain gurus who've advocated certain things and nearly killed athletes, and that's a fact.